Hi friends, today we're going to do a science activity and we're going to do a lesson on sink or float. And as you can see, I have all these cool different items and we're going to test them to see if they sink or float in a bucket of water. There's a bucket of water right there. All right, so I have lots of shapes as you can see. I have a plastic egg, a little plastic teacup, a little bear, a butterfly. I've got, a big shape square right here. I've got some leaves, a colored one, and a green one. And look at their different shapes. I got a baby bottle. I've got a dinosaur. Whoops. Let's spin this around. A dinosaur, a rock with a butterfly on it, a fake pretend plastic potato, some Unifix cubes, a stick, and we're going to see if these items sink or float. So we're going to make a prediction, and a prediction is something where we make an educated guess. We're going to predict it. We're going to guess if it's going to sink or float. Now, float means it's going to raise up to the top and like float, like a rubber ducky in the bathtub. And sink means it's going to go right straight down to the bottom. It's going to fall right down to the bottom. So, what item should we do first? Okay, let's check. Let's do the Easter egg. Do you think this is going to sink or do you think it's going to float on top of the water or go down to the water? Sink. All right, let's see. Ready? Oh, it's floating. It floats. It's floating in the water. So, that's floating. All right, let's find another item over here. How about this pretty butterfly rock? Do you think it's going to sink or is it going to float? Let's find out. Ready? Oh! What did it do? It sank. It went down to the bottom. It's not floating on top. This is the top. This is the bottom way down here. It sunk. It was sinking. Why did that sink and the egg float, do you think? If I was to lift these up and feel them, the egg is really light. There's nothing to it. But this rock is really heavy. It's heavy. It has some weight to it. Oh! Yeah, it sunk because it is heavier than the egg. All right, let's test out another one. How about this little plastic potato? Ready? Do you think it's gonna sink or float? Oh, it's floating just like the egg. All right, let's try the dinosaur. Do you think he's going to sink or float? All right, let's try it. Ready? Oh! He sunk down way to the bottom. Yeah. Why did he sink and not float? He is heavier. All right, let's make a prediction. Is this bottle going to sink or float? The Curious George on it. Let's see. Oh, it's floating. All right, let's try this teacup. Let's make a prediction. Sink or float? I think it's going to float. Oh, it's floating. It's floating on top of the water. Ooh, how about this butterfly? What do you think? Sink or float? I think it's going to sink. What do you think? Oh, it did. It sunk right down to the bottom. It's heavy. All right, how about this shape? A square. It's a big square. Oh, look at that. Oh, what's he gonna do? It's sinking. Look at that. Ah, it sunk. It was sunk right to the bottom. It didn't float. All right, let's make a prediction. What do you think this leaf's gonna do? Float? Oh, it's floating. Do you think this leaf will float too? Let's try it. It is. It's floating. All right, let's throw all of these shapes in and see what happens. Because they're all about the same size. All right, I have a handful of shapes. Here we go. Ready? Oh, they're floating. They're floating on top of the water. They're floating just like the leaves. Unifix cubes. Let's see what these guys do. Oh, they're floating on the top too, just like the shapes. How about I have this little bear. Make a prediction, float or sink? Sink or float? All right, let's see. Oh, he's floating on the top. And then I have a stick. Do you think it's gonna sink down to the bottom? Or do you think it's gonna float on the top? Oh, it's floating. All right, guys. So I think we could come to the conclusion that if it's heavy, it's going to sink to the bottom. And if it's light, it's going to float on top of the water, isn't it? So our bear and our shapes and our stick and the bottle and the potato and the teacup and the egg and the leaves, they're all floating on top of the water. And then the butterfly rock that sunk, the big square sunk, the dinosaur sunk, and that pink butterfly sunk. All right, well, I hope this was fun for you. This is something that you could try at home too. If you have a bowl, you could even use a big mixing bowl, put some water in it, and make sure you ask your parents before you put anything in water, because water can ruin some of your toys. So make sure you ask them and say, hey, Mom, I want to do a science lesson and see if some of my toys sink or float. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.